The outgoing boss of Govia Thameslink has apologised again for the chaotic rollout of the new timetable. Charles Horton announced on Friday he'd be stepping down, but not before the problems have been resolved. And part of that meant being questioned by MPs today. He said the company only had 3 weeks to roll out the timetable instead of 12. Away from Westminster, a month of misery for commuters shows no sign of improving, as our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Mommy,
For passengers young and old, Thameslink's new timetable is hell on wheels. At Harpenden in Hertfordshire, the number of rush hour trains has been cut by a third. Those that do run are unreliable and overcrowded, like this morning's 7:50. First it was cancelled, then back on.
It was supposed to be fast, now it's stopping everywhere, but people can't actually get on the train.
Commuter Emily Ketchin filmed her journey.
It's making it really difficult for me. I can't drop my children off at school in the morning and still get to London at a decent time. It's had a real negative impact on me and my family life.
We are sorry to announce that the 10:56 Thameslink service to Gillingham has been cancelled.
It wasn't any better when the rush hour ended. Steve Gledhill is supposed to be at a meeting in West Hampstead.
And it just says cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. The only trains that are available go to St Albans, don't stop at West Hampstead, continue to St Pancras. So I'm going back home and getting a friend to give me a lift by car.
What do you think of this service?
That's disgraceful, utterly pathetic.
The 12:26 Thameslink service to Rainham has been cancelled.
GTR's response to the chaos was to introduce what it called an interim timetable. That's code for scrapping almost 1 in 10 of its trains.
You're told to check the day before. I checked the day before and the train I was going to get was running, get to the station and it's cancelled.
In my family, I don't see them as much now. The 2 young kids and you don't see them. Because you never know what time in the evening you're going to get home.
We had to wait for about 3 minutes on the platform because the doors couldn't shut because people kept getting trapped in the doors.
Thameslink apologises for the inconvenience this may cause you.
On Friday, Govia Thameslink Railway's chief executive, Charles Horton, announced his resignation. But today he was called before MPs who wanted answers. Mr Horton offered this excuse.
We would expect the timetable to be finalised at least 12 weeks in advance of its starting. On this occasion, we were finalising the timetable 3 weeks before it started.
Could the timetable introduction have been postponed?
Any decision to delay the timetable would have had a significant impact on other operators as well as GTR.
Instead, there was a significant impact on GTR's passengers. It's still being felt. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Now, as any commuter who's had to use Govia Thameslink services over the last few weeks will know, the rollout of its new timetable has been far from smooth. In fact, unacceptable and chaotic was how it was described in the Commons today as the Transport Secretary survived a vote of no confidence from MPs. But one council now claims a timetable may be unlawful because there wasn't a proper consultation. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
The 12:26 Thameslink service to Rainham has been cancelled.
They've had a railway station in Harpenden for 150 years. The locals are hardened commuters, but no amount of experience could prepare them for the utter shambles that is Thameslink's new timetable. Now the leader of St Albans Council is suggesting it might be illegal. In a letter to the Rail Minister, he says, our legal advice is that the consultation process on the changes to Harpenden train services was unlawful.
What we see is on the trains is a number of people are fainting because the trains are overcrowded when they do turn up. We've also seen instances where people have been hospitalised because when there's been a short-term change in platforms, they've moved from one platform to another, fallen and ended up falling downstairs and being hospitalised.
The boss of Thameslink's parent company, GTR, has announced his resignation. Opposition MPs think the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, should follow his example. Today, the blame ping-pong bounced back to Parliament, where Labour tabled a motion of no confidence in Mr Grayling.
Why is it that this chief executive of a train company, who is responsible only for the travel disruption on one part of the railway, is able to recognise the responsibility that comes with his leadership role and resign, yet the person who is truly responsible, the Transport Secretary, remains in post?
When the rail experts advise, as they did in early May, that they were ready for the timetable change, the train companies and Network Rail, it is beholden upon ministers to take the advice of the rail professionals.
Harpenden MP called on GTR to get a grip.
What I think is incumbent upon GTR Network Rail to do its very best to get not just a grip over the medium-long term, but over the emergency timetable.
But there's no light yet at the end of the tunnel.
I have yet to see a sign that GTR is properly getting to grips with this issue.
And that is little comfort to Thameslink and Great Northern passengers. Simon Harris, ITV News.
What was he thinking this morning? Lord Sugar sent a tweet comparing the Senegal World Cup team to beach sellers in Marbella. This afternoon, the Apprentice star was forced to apologise. But that apology came well over an hour after an earlier message from him saying his funny tweet had been interpreted in the wrong way as offensive by a few people. In fact, many tonight are calling it racist, as our correspondent Simon Harris reports.
He's the billionaire businessman best known for a catchphrase.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
But Lord Sugar might be regretting his latest Twitter outburst. He posted this doctored picture of Senegal's football team, which implied the players had second jobs selling sunglasses and handbags. Sugar added the words, "I recognise some of these guys from the beach in Marbella. Multitasking, resourceful chaps."
The premise of it is that all black people look alike, was first and foremost like, oh, I see these men all of the time. And that's dangerous on a number of levels.
To begin with, Lord Sugar defended his remark. Just been reading the reaction to my funny tweet about the guy on the beach in Marbella. Seems it has been interpreted in the wrong way, as offensive by a few people. Frankly, I can't see that. I think it's funny, but I will pull it down if you insist. Lord Sugar's tweet clearly angered his bosses at the BBC. The corporation issued a statement saying he's in no doubt about our view on this, which is not the same as "you're fired." Lord Sugar eventually apologised, tweeting, "I misjudged my earlier tweet. It was in no way intended to cause offence, and clearly my attempt at humour has backfired. I have deleted the tweet and am very sorry."
It's really important that if we make an offensive comment that we recognise that, we make an apology for it and we make a commitment to try and change that behaviour. Hopefully he won't share anything similar again, despite the fact that he thought that that was clearly something funny and something amusing.
Lord Sugar was once tipped as a possible London mayor. Instead, he became the star of a popular reality TV show. Tonight, Labour called on the BBC to sack him. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Government Minister Greg Hands has resigned in protest over plans for a third runway at Heathrow. MPs will vote on whether or not to approve the controversial proposals on Monday. Ahead of that, the London Mayor Sadiq Khan has said he'll support a legal challenge against the airport's expansion. Here's Simon Harris.
He's the minister who chose to quit in a very modern way. Greg Hands announced his decision on Twitter ahead of next week's parliamentary debate on Heathrow's third runway. Mr Hands said he was honouring a promise to his Chelsea and Fulham constituents to vote against it. In a tweet he wrote, "As the government will be whipping the vote on Monday, this means I am resigning from the government." After years of uncertainty and indecision, next week's vote in Parliament should amount to a final decision. Labour's official position now is to oppose a third runway, but the party has told its MPs they're free to vote as they wish. Heathrow Airport has been working hard to persuade MPs of all parties to back its expansion plans. Privately, airport bosses think they've won the argument, but the airport's opponents are still hoping for an upset in the Commons.
I think it's too close to call to say that Heathrow has got all the votes it needs. There is a considerable amount of support in Parliament for a third runway at Heathrow, but there are more people wobbling now as the vote approaches than there were 6 months ago.
Some local councils where residents are affected by aircraft noise are pinning their hopes on a legal challenge to try to stop the new runway. Today, London's mayor said he would join them if MPs give expansion the go-ahead.
This will be a critical moment, and for the sake of Londoners affected, not least by poor air quality, disruption from noise, and the costs needed to improve transport connections, I will do what I can to stop these plans.
All eyes are now on former Mayor Boris Johnson, who once promised to lie down in front of the bulldozers. The Foreign Secretary was in Poland today, and it's thought he may be abroad again when MPs vote, which might allow him to swerve an awkward conflict between conscience and ambition. Simon Harris, ITV News.